So most software engineers can debug code that will break most people's brains, but ask them to get a second date with a woman they're genuinely excited about, complete system failure. I've worked with senior engineers making 200K plus who've been on 50 first dates in 2 years and maybe 3 second dates. Startup founders who raise millions but can't get a text back. Brilliant guys who can solve any technical problem except the one that matters most. Look, I get it because I lived in that world. I was a computer science major, Air Force ROTC, about to commission as a cybersecurity officer. I know the late nights coding, the logical mindset that becomes your default for everything, including dating. So today, I'm gonna break down the 4 core reasons why software engineers specifically struggle with attraction and the exact fixes that turn your analytical mind from a dating liability into your biggest advantage. And it starts with the #1 mistake that's killing your conversations before they even start. And I call it having a logical mind. Now, I get it, you've taken a lot of math, more so than the average human being. And so 2 + 2 = 4 to you. And that actually goes through in how you communicate. In fact, I would say the #1 reason why your conversations consistently go nowhere is because you're just overall too logical. Now, most men communicate in a logical way. Hey, what are you doing? I'm doing this. That's cool. Boom, boom, bam. We get it done. However, women aren't so logical. Women have an emotional brain. And with that being said, we have to actually tap out of that logic just sometimes to make the conversation a little bit more fun. Now, if you don't know what logical texting or just overall being logical, what that actually means, all that really means is reading everything at face value. So if she says something, be it a statement or even a question, you're taking it literally at face value. But not only that, you're replying at face value. You're replying super logical, and this comes off robotic and the biggest killer, which is boring, because you can do everything to a woman except for bore her. Now, I know what you're thinking. It shouldn't matter what you say. If the woman is attracted to you, then she's gonna reply anyway. And yes, in some cases, I do agree. However, in this new dating landscape where a woman is entertaining 5 to 10 different options at one given time, guess what? She's attracted to everybody. And so I personally have found that the guy who has a better communication and who can actually lead that conversation to an actual date, not being so logical and robotic, that's the guy who's gonna win. It doesn't matter how attracted she is to you. Now, how do we actually fix this logical communication and just this overall mindset? The first thing is that we have to start feeding into her emotion and start being a little bit more playful. So the first way you can do this is by exaggeration. So if she says, hey, what are you doing today? Or what are you up to today? Instead of saying, I'm doing this, that, this, and that, you can exaggerate. You can make up some sort of story, paint a picture in her head. There are so many ways to do this. Also, if she says something, don't necessarily take it logically. You can play a spin-off from it and tease her. This is how we actually flirt through text, by being playful, not texting like we're setting up a business meeting. I mean, we are trying to set up some business meetings, if you know what I mean, but we're not trying to set up that type of business meeting. Now, also with logical conversation, I'm finding that a lot of software engineers tend to go into interview mode, not only in person, but also through text. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, that's cool. How long you been doing that? Really? Tell me more about that. Like they're asking question after question after question. It doesn't matter who you're texting, this eventually gets exhausting from the other person on the other side of the phone. So you could follow something that I love to do, and I call it the 2-question, 1 statement, where you'll ask 2 open-ended questions, meaning that she can't answer directly a yes or no to it. So this is going to be what, where, how based questions. And then instead of just asking a question back, at the end, after those 2 questions, you can give just a statement. This will require her to actually invest more in the conversation, and it makes you come off less robotic and overall less logical. Now, some other advice, you can start using more flirting emojis. So the winky face or the flirty smirk face. You can also do code reads and assumptions. These are my absolute favorite. If you don't know how to open a woman, or if you don't know where to go in the conversation, just make some random assumption about her. You seem like the type too. I bet you can't, which is more of a challenge. But point is, you're making a cold read, and you can do this from her profile. You can do this from her Instagram profile. You can do this even if you met her in person and you guys are now having a text conversation. Now, another reason why software engineers specifically tend to struggle with women is because of their strategy. And that is, they have no strategy whatsoever. You go to work, you go home. Most of you guys actually work remote, and thus you're not getting the sufficient amount of exposure that you need because you're not putting yourself out there. Dating in itself is really just exposure. I like to relate it to fishing. So we're not hunting, we're actually fishing. We craft the attractive bait and then we cast our bait into many different lakes, oceans, and ponds. Most of you guys are only putting yourself in one tiny little lake. You know, you go to home, you go to the gym, whatever, you don't talk to anybody at the gym, that's for sure. But of course, you work in a more male-dominated environment, so you're not even around women that much. So you're just masculinized over and over and over again. You really have that work, home, gym, repeat sort of lifestyle. Now, as an online dating coach, I recommend that you guys use 3 dating apps at the minimum alongside with meeting people out in your day-to-day life. You might already be on Tinder, you might already be on Hinge, but you need to be in multiple different lakes and ponds. I personally have found that software engineers really do well on Coffee Meets Bagel too, or even an app called The League. These tend to have more career-driven professionals, more people who are inclined to date people such as yourself. So if you're not already on these platforms, you definitely should. But not only that, you should actually go out and live more of a social life, even if it means going out by yourself at least once a week. Go explore, some parts of your city that you haven't been out to. Go to a bar, hang out there for a little bit. Put yourself in more environments where women are actually placing themselves. This is how you win. Exposure. Now look, if you're watching this and you're thinking, Austin, this is literally my life. I'm stuck in the work, home, gym cycle and I have no idea how to break out of it. I do work with a small number of software engineers and tech professionals one-to-one to completely transform their dating results. There's a link down below in the description if you want to learn more about that. But for now, let's keep going because this next point might be the most important one, and that's no sense of sex appeal. You have what I call the geek or nerd archetype. Now, honestly, I'm not one to talk, right? Even my old YouTube channel and old Instagram used to be called a Geek AMD. I was the guy who loved, code, who loved creating programs on Visual Basic, who loved these Flash games. Like, this was my life. I would even solve Rubik's Cubes just for fun, just to show you how nerdy I was. However, I couldn't let my style and my presentation reflect that. Why? Because perception matters. You have to craft an attractive style and get out of that nerdy sort of geeky archetype. You have to be the sexy geek, the guy who dresses the best whenever he goes to work, the guy who knows how to put an outfit together. You basically want to have a style that makes people surprised about what you do. So if you talk to a woman and you're like, yeah, I'm actually a software engineer, she should almost be like, wow, I would have thought you were a bartender or something like literally something totally outside of your job. Because guess what? Women actually have preconceived notions towards software engineers and how they will be. And we don't want to fall into that stereotype whatsoever. Now, I made plenty of videos on style and how to craft that, but one word here that you really need to remember is simply sex appeal. Or maybe that's 2 words. Sex appeal. Wear things that fit, but this also comes down to your body. Hopefully you're already in the gym, as we spoke about before. Wear more jewelry. Actually be intentional with how you present yourselves to the world. I think if I was a software engineer, that will be like the #1 thing that I work on and make sure that I have putting out into the world every single day. Now, another point that I'll touch on, and that is being too smart. And it's actually causing your dating life to suffer, because being too smart makes you overthink absolutely everything, and also makes you have what's called a higher inhibition. And you guys are already super analytical, in fact sometimes over analytical, which causes you to walk on eggshells with women and thus making the results worse and worse. You're overthinking about how to reply. Sometimes you do too much with texting, sometimes you don't do enough at all. You're just overthinking everything, and this is why a lot of smart guys struggle with women versus the guy who's a little dumb, a little lower inhibition, really doesn't think about the things he does. He has the most results with women because he's not in his head. As simple as that, really. But I would say if you're a software engineer, coming from your mindset, which you're probably aligned with INTJ, which is like a personality type for Myers-Briggs. I'm also an INTJ, by the way. So with that being said, you actually have a superpower, and that superpower is reverse engineering. In fact, my whole entire program, Digital Romeo, is based on reverse engineering what worked for the masses, including myself. And so what you can actually start doing is reverse engineer your positive interactions with women. What signs have you noticed from the woman herself? What was her personality? How did you set up the date? How did you meet her? What are those signs and things that you can easily replicate over and over again. This is how you win. It's simply just pattern recognition. You know, just like coding, it really just comes down to pattern recognition. Unfortunately, you know, we can't outsource to ChatGPT or outsource to AI at this point in time. And that's another thing that you guys tend to do a lot, is try to outsource your texting, and it comes off too robotic, sometimes even more robotic than what you would have said yourself. And so with that being said, just learn more patterns. Don't outsource to AI, and I promise you, you're going to start winning more and more. Now, if you are a software engineer or tech professional who's tired of the work home gym cycle, tired of conversations that go nowhere, and ready to finally attract the caliber of woman you actually want to date, then once again, I want to invite you to apply to Digital Romeo. This is a 12-week mentorship program where I work directly with a small group of high-achieving men to completely transform their dating results. Here's exactly what you're going to get. Up first, you're going to get weekly one-on-one Zoom calls with myself, where we'll review your conversations, optimize your profiles every single week, and give you personalized feedback on everything from your photos, even to your texting strategy. You'll also get my complete online dating funnel framework. This is the exact system that I use to take women from match to date while maintaining attraction every step of the way. And like I said, profile optimization. I'll personally review and help you craft dating profiles that attract high quality women who are genuinely excited to meet you. And before that, we're going to work on your style. We're going to ensure that you know how to dress and that you know how to present yourself in the right way. And this really comes down to identifying what I call your points of leverage. So we are going to assess where your strengths are, where is your unique appeal. This could be based on your looks, based on your lifestyle, based on your just actual style. Everybody usually has something unique about them, so we're going to try to figure that out for you. So if you're ready to stop leaving your dating life to chance and start applying the same systematic thinking that made you successful in tech to finally succeeding with women, click the link down below in the description, and we'll be talking here soon. All right, guys, I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Peace.